this curve shows, let's say, a demand of certain product or services. When we see here, 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 these are the seasonal components or seasonal peaks, right? Then if we draw the trend line, it is a positive trend, right?
Right.
It means this curve describes the actual demand, this curve describes the trend, right? And then average, if you calculate every demand over 4 years, this is year 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is demand projection of product or service. This is the average demand over a period of 4 years. And during these peaks, there is a randomness. You see here randomness? You see randomness here? Okay? It means your demand curve can be explained why these peaks are certain seasonal peaks, trend is positive, average demand is here, and actual demand also has a random components. Now, let's look at the trend component. Trend component, persistent overall upward or downward pattern. As I mentioned in the previous diagram, it was a positive trend. It can be otherwise negative trend. There can be no trend, right? We'll be discussing that later. Changes due to population, technology, age, culture, and so on. I mean, certain trend is there, typically several years duration. Trend is generally, you cannot have a trend over a period of day, or maybe in certain cases you can have, but generally trend is over a longer period of time, typically several years. As far as the seasonal component is concerned, it is a regular pattern of up and down fluctuations. And due to weather, due to custom. For example, if there is a, let's say, Eid season, or Diwali season for Hindus, or Christmas season for Christians, I mean, sales go up. Similarly, visit to the parks during the holiday season, visit to the parks will increase. In summer season, you will require, let's say, ice cream and cold products will be more in demand. Similarly, in winter season, you'll have hot beverages more in demand. The seasonal. And season can be week, length is day, number of seasons is 7. In a month, 4 weeks, number of seasons will be 4. In a month, 28 to 31 days, and there will be 28 to 31 season. In a quarter, in a year, 4 quarters, in a year, 12 months, or in a year, 52 weeks. These means in certain week, let's say Christmas week can be a season, Eid week can be a season, holiday week or holiday season could be there. And generally, while you are forecasting, you have to be careful if there is a seasonal variation in demand or in forecasting. Then there is a cyclical component. In cyclical component, you see evenly spaced cycles are repeated, up, down, repeating the movements affected by business cycle, political and economic factors. Multiples, generally, this is again, cyclical variation is generally over a period of longer duration, often casual or associated relationship, right? We'll be discussing associative relationship in greater details. Then in the random component, erratic, unsystematic, residual fluctuation. Means you cannot predict what is happening, up, down, sometime much below, sometime much higher, due to random variation or unforeseen event. You cannot explain why this randomness is happening. Short duration and generally non-repeating. I mean, you see each, means there is no pattern as far as this curve is concerned.
Right. So, I think we understand the various components of time series forecast. We would like to know the quantitative methods of forecasting.
Okay. Aisha, as we mentioned, there are 6 or 7 quantitative methods, and we started with naive approach. Naive approach is, I think, the simplest, easiest, straightforward method of forecasting, which assumes demand in the next period is same as demand in most recent period. Let's say the demand in January, we'll expect demand in February to be the same as demand in January, or demand in 2010 will, if we are taking a year as a time horizon, whatever was the demand in 2009, we'll assume that there will be a same demand in 2010. If January sales were 68, then February sales will be 68. If 2009 sales were 1,000, 2010 sales will be 1,000. Sometimes cost effective and efficient can be a good starting point. I think you cannot say that it means this approach gives you a good starting point. Let's say when we say last month such and such demand was there and we expect to be demand the same. It is a possibility that demand is more, it is a possibility that demand is less, but at least naive approach gives one good starting point as far as forecasting is concerned. Generally, people tend to give a good weightage to the understanding that whatever was demand last month, similar demand is expected during the next month. The next approach is the moving average method. In moving average, what we do is a series of arithmetic means. What we do is used if little or no trend, and used often for smoothing, provides overall impression of the data over a period of time. How we calculate moving average? I think it's very simple, ladies and gentlemen. We sum up the demand in the previous n periods. N could be 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 12, 13 or whatever, and divide by n. We sum up the demand of previous n periods, divide by n, and we get moving average. Example of moving average, for example, we see here from January to July, we have the actual shed sale is 10, 12, 13, 16, 19, 23, 26. And if we calculate, let's say, the moving 3 months moving average, January, February, and March, we add 10, 12, 13, divide by 3, and it is expected that in April the demand would be 11, 2 by 3. This will be the demand in March, in April, and similarly in May, June, and in July. This is what we call 3-period moving average, and it's very simple. Now, graph for the moving average as we see here. This is the actual sales, and this is the moving average forecast. And it's very important to see here that average, you have to remember it, averages are averages, and averages will generally lag behind the actuals. You see here the actual sale, and when it crosses, then in moving average you are few steps behind. Actually, it gives good estimate, but it is never perfect. And there are some techniques which generally people use to close the gap between actual and forecasts. For example, weighted moving average. In weighting moving average, what we do is we assign weights to the number of periods. The most recent period is assigned the highest weight, whereas the most past periods are assigned less weights, which is again used when trend is present. Older data usually is considered as less important. Weights are based on experience and intuition. Now, it is a quantitative method, but assigning the weight is to be done with the expert opinion. Weighted moving average is summation of weights for period n multiplied by demand for period n, and then we sum up all the n periods, sum up the weights, and divide it by that. Let's see the calculation. For example, weight applied last month 3, 2 months ago 2, and 3 months ago 1. Sum of the weights is 6. Now actual data is as usual in the previous example we see 10, 12, 13, 16, 19, 23, 26. Now if we apply the weighted, what we call this weighted moving average. In weighted moving average we apply 3 into 13, then 2 into 12, 10 into 1, divide by 6, 12, 1 over 6. This is the 3-period weighted moving average, and this is how we calculate it. And in the graph you will see that is relatively closer than the simple moving average. This is our actual sales, and this is our average weighted moving average, and this is simple moving average, and this is weighted moving average. You see, the weighted moving average is relatively closer to the actual sales. Now, it means if you apply further, if you increase the weight further, let's say to month 3, the most recent month, instead of 3, you apply the weight 5, and then weight 2 to the second month, and weight 1 to the third month, you will get further closer the gap between the actual sales and the weighted moving average. I think it's iteration, and with the experience in whatever you are whatever you are predicting, you will be able to come up with what weights actually needs to be assigned in order to have a closer